Hello and welcome. We're going to talk about three, uh, another cluster of our essays, that being that being freedom is intended as a challenge, slavery in the land of the free, and clan of the one-breasted women. So let's start with freedom is intended as a challenge. Freedom is intended as a challenge is a really beautiful, sweet essay. It's very short, and it asks us to think about what freedom means to us. So in the last unit you wrote about, or a couple units ago, you wrote about the idea of American freedom. You wrote about the idea of the American dream, right? Which is largely about freedom. And so many of you guys wrote about freedom in your papers. But what does freedom mean? Right. So she asks us to reread the Declaration of Independence, the original founding documents. Sorry, it's written by Naomi Wolf, who's an amazing journalist, very intelligent. She says that the Declaration of Independence is unreadable in the language that it's written in, and it often goes unread. And only one part of it is used and interpreted. So it is used and often misinterpreted, right? So we think about the fact that all men are created equal for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Now, we all know that when they wrote that document, they were talking about landowning white men, right? And that we've been continued to expand the meaning of the Declaration of Independence and who it includes. But there are other parts of it that that get glossed over, and one of those is that our idea with so life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? She talks about how we think of happiness as this thing that gets exchanged for money or labor or family time, right? That happiness is largely what we get when we activate our liberty to pursue our individuality, right? I'm happy because I got a new job and I decided that I'm going to pursue my creative side. I'm happy because I'm getting married. I'm happy because of all of these things that are largely individual. But back then, she argues, is that happiness actually meant being empowered personally and allowing for the personal empowerment of others in a condition of freedom, right? So back then, happiness meant we are happy. It wasn't I am happy, it was we are happy. I am happy because you are happy. We live in a state of mutual happiness. So he said, and that was the literal definition of happiness, right? It was a communal thought, a communal idea that I can't be happy if you're not happy, right? And this is back in a time when people relied on each other a lot more. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have Instagram, they didn't have if you went to work, you were walking to work, and you needed a billion other people to help you do your job, right? To help you get your goods, right? Everybody's happiness was much more interconnected. Do you know the person who grows your vegetables? Do you? No, but the people back then did. Sorry. So sorry. Bless me. I'm so sorry. Jefferson writes, lucky us, when we recognize what's wrong, we just got to gather like philosophers, for that is where we get our ideas and we fix it, while other nations have to take up arms and lose their minds. So she talks about how Thomas Jefferson was trying to found a philosopher's nation, right? Not a nation where people fight wars every time they need to change something. It's a nation of people who gather and talk sensibly about what needs to be done. For them, liberty and security were always in the same breath, and happiness meant me and you, not just because it's better, but because two are inextricable from one another. So the second part of the Declaration of Independence that she outlines, or that she emphasizes, is that we have a sacred obligation to take the most serious personal risks to defend our freedom, right? So our freedom, our liberty, and our happiness is our responsibility to fight for. We must fight for it, and that fight never ends. Uh, it is because the founding fathers knew that it's in our nature to get used to our own oppression, right? It is human nature to forget that you're being oppressed, to not really care that you're being oppressed. Um, she asks, she says the Declaration of Independence has become a relic of a secular nation, an image, a perverted idea. She asks, what would we tolerate if we took this to heart? There's no place for complacency. All are implicated, right? Liberation is a place in the mind. Countless people get this. It is a timeless concept formed only randomly under George III. Freedom is a responsibility that comes with being a person in a free society, and it never goes away. She says Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton were examples, remained in service long after retirement. We have to ask ourselves, am I a revolutionary for freedom? Am I fighting for other people's happiness? Because that is what it means to be free, right? To ever be fighting for your freedom. What does your freedom mean? So where can we take this idea, right? Do we see ourselves to be free? What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the ability to wear whatever you want, or does it mean the ability to earn a living wage? Does it mean not paying your taxes to, people who fund foreign wars? There's all kinds of ways to interpret this question. Now, what about when we're talking about two essays like Slavery in the Land of the Free and Clan of the One-Breasted Women? Slavery of the Land of the Free. So these were all kind of very long essays, and I salute you for reading all of them. Slavery in the Land of the Free was a portrait of modern American slavery, right? So there's the extreme example of a preteen from Mexico who, sorry, it is escaping me what country she's from. If she wasn't, she was from Central or South America, and her parents were promised that she was going to be taken care of, that she was going to have a job, employed in someone's house as a maid. And instead, she was chained up in a backyard. She was starved. She was very inhumanely treated. And, this is an extreme example of a modern American slavery. But the essay provides several others. And those people were punished. Obviously, those people were caught and they were punished when a neighbor saw that poor girl chained up in a backyard. Those people were caught and punished. That girl still bears the trauma and the scars of what she went through, but they were punished. But a lot of people don't. The kinds of people that don't are the people who make use of traditional American slavery, and that being modern American slavery, that being people who hire migrant workers and underpay them, people who literally purchase slaves from south of the border and, promise them jobs and land, jobs and pay. And instead, they destroy their visas, they destroy their identification, which makes them an illegal alien, again, makes them powerless, and puts them under armed guards while they pick tomatoes from fields. And the author outlines the laws in place that allow for this to happen, right? That there are certain, programs that encourage employees to hire certain kinds of workers and give them certain kinds of rights. But lack of government oversight means that these employers can take advantage of this system and find loopholes in the kind of care that they give to their employees and end up recreating the conditions of slavery. So, people come here for a better life, for a better job, and eventually find themselves as slaves, right? And this happens in a number of ways. sorry, my bad. Just going through my notes. Um, So at the end of the day, this ends up becoming a version of government-sponsored slavery, right? So the government creates laws that's supposed to make it easier for immigrants to get jobs, but they end up being the very laws that create the conditions for slavery. Um, so let's talk let's talk a little bit about Clan of the One-Breasted Women. Clan of the One-Breasted Women is a story of a Mormon woman from a Mormon family who grew up in Utah in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And in Utah, where there was nuclear testing, where there were nuclear bombs being dropped and tested in a time when nobody had any idea about the effects of nuclear bomb testing and the kinds of radiation that can happen as a result. She writes about how the women of her family uniformly got breast cancer after this, which her family did not have a history of that prior to the nuclear bomb testing in their area. And she talks about all of the ways that she was silenced as a woman for trying to talk about this in the Mormon culture, that Mormons especially are very patriotic and they trust their nation. And that if their nation says that we're not doing anything wrong, we're not giving you cancer, then the people of the Mormon faith largely fall in line and say, all right, I believe you. She talks about the people who fought back against this idea, who tried to sue the United States after, seeing families decimated by the cancer caused by dropping bombs in American backyards, and how eventually the United States declared itself having done no wrong, even though they acknowledged that it is likely that the bombs they dropped caused cancer, right? And it is about her being a death doula to the women of her family, watching so many of them die of breast cancer, and that she eventually gets breast cancer herself. And then she talks about the form of resistance that is in play, so that she is forced to participate in, and they break into a government facility where there is nuclear testing still going on, and she and a group of women conduct a protest, and they're all arrested. And then they're dropped off in the middle of the desert after they're arrested. So why bring this essay into the conversation about freedom? So both of these essays are about state-sponsored slavery, or they're about the government subjugating its people for its own ends and creating conditions that are not necessarily, well, the slavery one is those people are not free, right? But as in Clan of the One-Breasted Women, they are these women or these people, right, who try to fight back and try to get their due from a country that believes in freedom and democracy. They can't get it, right? They can't get justice. So in a way, if American can do whatever it wants and drop bombs and give us cancer, is that freedom? So these are the questions that I want you to start thinking about in preparedness for your essay. Okay, this video is already long enough, and I'm going to let you go. And thank you very much. See you next time.